Good morning. We'll call the meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority to order. Everybody online can hear, I believe, Authority Member Berg. Is Mr. Ingham on anywhere?
Yep, he's right back there.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 25th?
So moved.
We have a second?
I second.
I had three here, Sean. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right.
That's how it should be done.
Yep. Do we have a motion to approve the airport vouchers totaling $209,804.04?
Motion.
Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. We have individual vouchers A through G. We have a motion to approve the individual vouchers A through G.
So moved.
We have a second.
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 We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yeah, that's good.
Aye. Roll call.
Well, we can do just a blanket vote, and if it's unanimous, we're fine. If not, then we'll have to do a roll call. I know you don't like that.
I think our bylaws say.
Well, okay, let's do the roll call.
Hang in.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Capitano.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Crosby.
Aye. Item number 4, we have the June financials. Any discussion or question on the June financials? I had one item, well, not one item, but in interest of not getting too deep into this, if we look at our summary, sort of our dashboard, our net income for June is about $500,000 under budget. Are there any concerns or areas that we should be looking at with that type of variance?
Do we know what's causing that? Like what's contributing to that downfall?
Just do the timing of payments.
And I know, Mr. Berg, you always have a series of questions on the financials. I'm just looking at 561.
Is he muted?
Rick, I think you're muted there.
Do we anticipate that that shortfall will be caught up then next month when payments
Next month
arrive?
or, in the quarter, it just all depends on the timing of the revenues.
Well, I guess if we just look at that, page 4, I believe it is. And we can see our revenues are actually running ahead at about 1.1 million. Salaries are up about 60,000. Employee benefits are up about 20,000.
3 payrolls in June.
Repairs and maintenance.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the big differences in the second. 3 payrolls in June,
A
and the
couple
police department with
fire retirements with some vacation payout.
correct.
And then what about the building rentals?
The 283,000,
So that's coming in
probably a little bit ahead.
good, so that helps.
I mean, the big swing there is like I said, we picked up about 100,000 additional revenue over budget. We're looking at expenses of about double, 1.3 million versus 670.
So the big thing is you see, so Balance Tax and Accounting started doing a monthly allocation of depreciation. So the 438,872, we've never budgeted for depreciation. That's always done at the end. This year, they started to put in a monthly amount, an estimated monthly amount for depreciation. So look at that expense in there versus, I mean, that's about 500,000 right there. Normally, that's not in there until the audit is done. This year, they're putting that in every month, the depreciation. So that's your big difference. You'll see it's blank all the way across except for the actuals.
Yeah, and then, well, even with that, 4 or 5, we're still running expenses higher than normal there. So I guess just the concern there as we look at that is that variance is positive or negative in the financials, so it concerns both ways.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
sir, I'm learning this fancy new technology, so I apologize. But I would just have kind of just a general question, kind of overall, and we all know what our 2023 budget is. And so I would just say, on this June financial, are we still on track to hit our 2023 budget with these incomes and expenses?
I say yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a motion to receive and file the financials?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, change order number 3, Sun Electric.
Jeff, you wanna come up and
All right, here's some next two of mine here. So this change order 3 for Sun Electric is for the security access project that we're working on. There's 3 items on it. The first is a dual-sided printer. So what it is like this is my security badge for AOA access. This is what this printer prints. There's obviously an image on the front and then verbiage on the back for contact information. Mead & Hunt had spec'd out a single-sided printer, so that's what the contractor had provided. They came back with, obviously a dual-sided printer is needed. They came back with, I wanna say it started out like at $8,400 just to upgrade it to a dual-sided printer, which is just a obscure amount of money, obviously. And Darren had looked online, like a dual-sided printer was right around $7,500, so it was even less money. So we went back and they got it, the price down to like $6,400, and then we eliminated like the laminator option. Sun Electric came back with the updated price of $2,710, and then Mead & Hunt is picking up $2,000 of the $2,710. So that's why you see York, the airport authority added cost is the $710 that you see there. Second option, or excuse me, the second item is for 2 uninterrupted power supplies. So what it's for is just like an example is Darren had mentioned last week there was a power bump here at the terminal, so there was a loss of power for a few seconds. The security system needs a continuous uninterrupted power, obviously for security reasons. So these are the battery backup units. Another scenario would be, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, like when their terminal gets switched over to generator power, like there's a hot summer day, and Xcel wants the terminal to go to generator backup. I think there's a few second delay. These would provide that in their uninterrupted power. And then the last item there is just an added security camera over at the East Terminal building, where you go from in the vestibule, you go from the terminal building to the AOA access. It's just a added camera to the camera network. So total overall cost to the airport authority is $63,60.
Questions or discussion? Motion to approve.
None. Motion.
A second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Hagan,
Aye.
Bird,
Aye.
Kaptan,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Item number 6, Northern Improvement, change order number 1, long-term parking expansion, 7547.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, the overall change order price, estimated price, I should say, is $75,4750. So this is for this long-term parking lot expansion over here that we're in the process of paving. That used to be the old exit plaza, and if you can imagine, like all the power, all the street lighting, all the communication goes through that area, just because all the old exit loops were there. And it's old, so you got all this utility infrastructure, there's very poor as-builts to begin with, so you know the design is kind of iffy from the start. So when we got into the project, we're actually finding what's out there. So item A on the change order there that you see is additional change order, estimated additional change order cost to Superior Electric of $41,582.50 for extra work that they had. So if you can imagine, you go out there, you know, like an example is, you know, typically like a communication or power line is, you know, roughly 2.5 feet deep. Some of these were 6 inches to a foot. So that doesn't work out with the new grading, so we have to like take that line out, drop it to below the pavement section so it doesn't get destroyed. So it's just extra work on the contractor's part. Because we're doing this electrical work, we didn't have to do items, I'll skip item B there for 1 second. Because we're doing this change order electrical work in item A, we didn't have to add bollards and concrete to protect 2 handholds that we originally thought were gonna need to stay in place. Because of this electrical work, we were able to take those handholds out, eliminate the concrete, eliminate the bollards, so there was a substantial cost savings there. And then back to item B there, we had just doubled up on the tree removal. We had it in this project, we just won't pay for these items. They were actually taken out with the Exit Plaza project that Terry's working on. So in the end, the estimated change order price, like I said, is $75,4750. Joel Kath, who's the electrical engineer on this, said that the items, the quantities are estimated high, so that $7,500 might even come down more. So,
Questions?
When will this project be completed?
I would say in a couple weeks. They were actually on pace to pave the parking lot at the end of this week, but with the rain that we got on Saturday night, it just, you know, turned it into a swimming pool, so set it back a few days. So, we're in the home stretch though.
Any other discussion? We have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second, call the roll.
Hagan,
Aye.
Bird,
Aye.
Kaptan,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Item number 7, we have Mr. Robinson back with us today. I wonder if you could
Nice to be back.
Thank you.
give us an update here on marketing plans.
Gentlemen, here are your 2 handouts. I will email these to you. I did not realize you would be here.
Do you have an extra copy by chance, Norm?
Thank you.
So few weeks ago, we discussed my suggestions on your alternatives for marketing and assistance consultancy. I gave you my recommendations, and I was charged with going back and digging deeper. Now, as all the board members know, I've talked to all of you, so I have your senses and your feelings. I did not ask your opinions necessarily, nor will I give you, a recommendation in this document. Of course, the document is something that we're going to go through line by line. I'm just joking. It's 9 pages long. We're going to talk about a couple of things. Sure, I'm ready. My technical assistant, Darren, is going to help me. Go ahead.
Now, just can ask them if they can see it. I don't know if I really want to say.
Mr. Berg, Ms. Reagan, can you see it?
Not yet.
Yeah, I can see you. I don't see the shared document.
Okay, let us know when you do.
so do
He's
I.
working on it here, hold on.
Okay.
He's working on it.
Got it.
All right,
Okay,
thank
came
you.
through, thanks.
That's the right one, yes, the only one, yes, sir.
You want me to do it?
Sure, I can, sorry. Okay,
You need to go back, tell me.
okay. All right, so, do I need to have this on the desk? Well, let's just see what happens. All right, we have a couple of different categories, as you all will remember. The Flint Group, we'll talk about both of these, and the National Aviation Specialty Agency, and we'll talk about these, not in detail, but I'll give you some overviews. Of course, I suggest you go through the document and look further. As you know, the Flint Group has a long-standing relationship with you. They understand the airport, they understand FAR. They understand the goals and objectives of the marketing responsibility. Again, I've talked with the Flint folks, I've talked with representatives of the national agencies, so I've gotten good information from them. Now, I will remind you, this is not an analysis of the advertising that the Flint Group does, nor do we have a suggestion as to what kinds of marketing and advertising that would be recommended by the national groups, because of course, they don't have any of that information, nor would they give us all that at this point unless they were asked to. So the Flint Group understands your goals. They do understand the objectives. They understand the local and regional market area. They know who the competition is. They understand the partners, of course, the airlines and the other partners. Of course, they work with your key staff members. And as board members, of course, I would suggest that if there's a decision to be made, you talk to your staff members, certainly. They understand that there's a relationship between the city and the airport. They're very cognizant of that. And they obviously understand the local media, regional media, and so forth. So if there's an issue, they know who to get a hold of, and so forth and so on. They have people in their speed dial. Now, currently, they handle, they're your go-to guys, all aspects of their marketing. They create, if you will, the ongoing creative message, which is, in our ad terms, is the words and all the different creative things. They manage and oversee the graphic standards for the airport. A lot of people don't understand why that's important. It's extremely important. You've got to have a unified message. It's got to look the same. The colors have to be the same, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Someone's got to be in charge of that. They handle all the website design, all the updates, any of the ongoing maintenance. They host your website. They develop the media recommendations. They do all the planning. They do all the placement. So they handle all of that stuff for you. They develop all the creative elements. In other words, the pictures and the layouts and all of those kinds of things. This is a key point in any situation, especially in, as they say, these times. with social media becoming a stronger media placement. They do all the planning, they do all the messaging development, they do all the placement for all the free social media like the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and so forth that many of you probably see in your feeds. And they also do all the paid digital marketing. Basically what that is if we want something to be placed in a controlled environment, if you will, i.e., I'm using this just off the top of my head, if we wanted to do a special campaign in the Devil's Lake area, that's something we can do with paid social media, and they handle all that. They also, of course, do, well, I shouldn't say also, you may not understand this, but part of the social media, and for the record, for example, on Facebook, you have about almost 26,000 people that follow you, which is a lot of people. And so if there's a placement, if you will, 26,000 people will see that during a particular day. A lot of people comment on things. Social media is good and bad in that regard. It's good in that a lot of people comment. If there are questions that come up from one of our posts, the Flint team monitors that. On average, they monitor it about 3 times a day. There's part of their team that just does that. If there's something that can be answered based on their knowledge and their, well, let's just say their knowledge, they will answer that. If it's something that's a little bit over their pay grade, so to speak, they will get a hold of Darren or get a hold of Sean or someone here to directly answer that. So they're watching over that. They manage all the public relations. I don't have to explain that to you. They're available for 24/7 crisis management if that's needed. It's not often needed, but they are there and they're there. And their job is to work with your people to make sure that the airport is represented correctly and that the proper message is spread out. And they're also very good at reporting their findings and so forth. So, the Flint group, talking with them, they get the vision. They feel they get the vision. But if they are allowed to continue working for you, they suggest doing a strategic review session, they call it, and where you look at, the vision as of today, any of the future concerns. We'll talk about the process in a second. The competitive landscape, obviously it changes all the time. One of the things that a long-time vendor can suffer from, if you will, is complacency. I wouldn't suggest that they have at all. That's not my intimation, if you will. But things change and they know that, so they'd like to review that with you. They, of course, like to talk about the partnership landscape, what the future might come about. Of course, the role and responsibility, the feelings, if you will, of your team for them. The importance of crisis management, where that fits in, just as a reminder, and anything else that comes up. Now, here's the way it would work. There will be a session, if you will, this is just their suggestion, a session which would include members of the key staff members of FAR and people that are involved from the Flint group. Just, it's, a simple session. It's what I always say to clients is they would like to squeeze your head like a sponge and get as much out of there as they possibly could so they can act on it. So during that session, and they would like to keep this positive, information, ideas, concerns, suggestions, like it says there. It'll be led by the Flint group, but the reality is they will be there to listen. Again, you guys are the sponge, they want to squeeze your heads. They want to know what's going on in your head. And I would argue that that's probably something that will be an ongoing practice by them. There likely will be questions after the meeting from them. So there will be more. They don't certainly expect that in a couple, 3-hour meeting, we're going to have all the questions in the world answered. But I will remind you again, that's a session where they are basically learning. All my years in the agency business, we call that a creative learning session. We brought the creative people in, we sat them down, and the clients were the ones that provided information. In other words, information that the agency may or may not know. And after this, they'll reevaluate their marketing strategies, their recommendations. So the point is, they want to step up to the plate, they want to do the best job they can. That's all coming from conversations with them. Now, the alternative, as I said, there are a few specialty agencies that deal exclusively in aviation. They get it. They understand airports. You don't have to teach them. It's not like bringing in an agency from Bismarck or South Fargo and explaining to them from the very beginning airport. Airport's a different breed of cat than a local business, for example. These folks work in our arena, small and medium-sized regional airports. They understand airport, like I say. They have incredible databases available to them, very detailed information about customers and so forth and so on. They use all that for their strategies. And so in the packet, which again, Rick and Rick, I will email this to you. There's, I believe, about 7 pages of an example of one of the firms sent this to me, and I caution you, and I printed in red, this is not about Fargo, this is just an example. But it shows you the way these people think. I mean, they think deep, and if you start looking at that, your eyes will start to go, I'm sure. But most importantly is understand that they understand. So they are a very reasonable alternative. Again, this is a disclaimer. This is not Fargo information, but it's an example of the way they think. The way they make their media plans and recommendations and strategies are based on data. It's a big deal. They've been in the business a long time, working with folks just like you. So again, they don't have to learn from the beginning. In my opinion, they provide outstanding strategic, whoops, what am I doing here? Hello. Well,
Just click out there.
all right. They provide, outstanding strategic and media direction and so forth. So I think they're a very good reason, or a very good alternative if that's what you want to do. I covered this, your 7 pages in there just to illustrate how they think. If you're curious about them, of course, we have the opportunity to reach out to them. I don't believe that we are required to do a structured RFP. This would be a matter of getting a hold of probably 3 or 4 firms, that's about all there are, and basically saying, look, we'd like you to make a presentation, what information do you need? And they would or would not want to participate. So that is certainly available for you. If you want to know more about them, what they can do for you, that's an opportunity that you have available. And I know that they would be interested. Okay. Quick recap, again, it's in the document. What they're good at, they're really good at market research. They're really good at marketing strategy, because again, they understand and so forth. They've done this for other people. I don't suggest for a second that they would provide a cookie cutter. They're very good at media planning and direction, especially based on all the data that they have or they would use. They have their own creative people, so they would do those things that were necessary. They won't be jobbing it out here, which, whether that's good or bad, but they have their own people. They're very good, of course, about detailed reporting and their digital optimization. There's a negative. The national agencies wouldn't be able to do any of the localized public relations and creative services and so forth. So they don't do that. For example, as you all know, there's a newsletter that is currently being done. They wouldn't do that. They don't do website design, and they don't do ongoing updating or anything like that. They don't manage the organic, which is again the free social media. They don't do any of that, so we have an alternative here coming up. They also don't do any of the local media relations stuff. If you have an issue or if you have a positive thing, that's not in their wheelhouse. They don't do crisis management if it were needed. And it's not their deal to maintain open channels with the city folks. So how do you fill the gap should you decide to do that? Well, the reality is you'd have to hire someone. You'd probably have to hire part-time. I would respectfully argue it probably would require a full-time person. In other words, you folks would have to add an FTE. I would suggest that this person absolutely be required to have current prior airport marketing experience. Don't want to bring somebody in that doesn't get it. Which, here we go. This person would need to be mature, seasoned, experienced, a marketing professional who would come in here and quickly become someone that does the job, picks up the parts that the national folks don't do, and doesn't need to have constant oversight by management. That's not what you need. You don't need an intern. This is not an intern's job. This is a big deal. Of course, in addition to this person, who will be relatively expensive, you're also going to have equipment. You talk about data, for example. Well, a lot of this data is available, but it costs money, and it costs a lot of money. So that would be an expense as well. So should you decide to go with a national firm, I would argue you're going to have to hire someone here that you respect, trust, and then you need to support those folks. You know, dollars and cents, I mean, we can talk about that, but it's a pretty big number. Okay, so what kind of questions do you have at this point? Basically what I've done is I've done a deep dive to let you know what's going on in the two different arenas, what your opportunities are.
Questions?
Norm, Rick Ingham.
Hi, Rick.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, caveat, I've known Norm for about 20, 25 years, and there's no BS when he gives an opinion, and I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Norm, one of my concerns is that we are coming into a process of expanding, basically doubling the size of the terminal, and some of those changes would scare me. Making massive changes would scare me. But having said that, this process was educational and necessary. You've given us choices, but what's your personal opinion? What would you do? Because I trust your opinion.
Well, my opinion is.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, you're talking to me.
Yeah.
My opinion, if I were your employee and it was my charge, I was the director of marketing or whatever, I would give the Flint people another year. I would see how they perform. I would sit down with them very soon, go through the session that they're talking about, which is designed to, remember, you're the sponge. See if they step up and fill in some of the weakness areas that you may or may not feel they have. Now, I would argue that they have a heck of a lot of strengths. No one's perfect, and it's always easy to point fingers at people that have been around for a while. But that's what I do. I give them a year. You can always go back and go to the national firms, because if you do a national firm, whereas you will be very, very, I believe you will be very pleased with a lot of the work they do, a lot of the other stuff they won't do. So you'll have to bring in a person and so forth. Now, if you bring in the right person, they might pick up the slack very quickly. I don't know that. I don't know who that person is. If you asked me to go out and find that person today, I wouldn't know where to start. Well, I know where to start, but
Norm,
don't have everybody.
following up on that question, if we were to go out and do an RFP, is that process sort of similar to what we'd be doing with Flint at the same time?
No.
Went out and said, let's look and get proposals, but we just advertise, we don't know what we're gonna get.
I think in the case of Flint, that's a matter of looking at the business today and what your concerns are and filling in some of the blanks that they may not know about. You wanna make sure they know everything that you know. In the case of the national firms, we basically ask them to make a proposal for your business.
Oh, I'm
They- they
just
come-
saying that our normal process would be to identify the need, identify what we're looking for.
Right.
Advertise and see who responds.
And in
Across.
essence, yes, yeah, that's exactly what we do.
So that would have the same sort of effect of a one-on-one with Flint, but would be just saying, throwing the door open and saying, we may have to listen to a lot more presentations.
It wouldn't be the same, Mr. Chairman, because in the case of working with Flint, that would be to help a current vendor do as good a job as they can on strategy and implementation and planning about something they already know, in other words, you as a client. Whereas if we bring the other people in, which is, it may very well be a very good idea to see what's available, then they would basically do a variation of this 7 pages. This is what we do, this is how we do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now what they will say is, these are the things we do it really well, here are some examples, so they will impress you in that regard. But then they will, I believe, also remind you that, oh, by the way, these are the things that we don't do, which are all those things that I know. So, easy to do, there are only a few of them.
Question?
I actually think because we are almost doubling the size of our airport and really entering into a really exciting new chapter with the airport, now would probably be the perfect time to look at what else can we do. And I remember in your last presentation, Ron, you said, you know, you wouldn't want a new company because you'd have to babysit them and train them and teach them. Well, if you're telling, I feel like you're giving me a mixed signal or giving us a mixed signal because you're saying we need to sit down with Flint and tell them what we want, or, you know, I would like to have a marketing company come in and say, this is what is happening on the national level, this is what's happening on the local level, this is what, you know, maybe could be done, or you should look at, you know, I mean, like, we shouldn't have to tell Flint what to do.
Well, if I intimated that I believe that they want you to tell them what to do, I didn't mean that.
Okay.
What I meant to say was they want to make sure they understand everything about this airport that is currently there. You know, I mean, in this process, for example, I was talking to Darren yesterday while we were testing this little presentation, and he brought up a couple pretty cool things that are happening coming up. Well, I don't know if Flint knows that or not, but the point is, they're willing to come in and say, hey, please tell us what's going on, not how to do it. Their job is to tell you how to do it. Their job is to make the marketing recommendations and carry them out.
Each year when
I
they
don't
come
think you're
in,
going to tell any marketing agency how to do it.
Yeah, I don't mind going out for an RFP, but I personally feel Flint has been here, the airport, since the 70s, the early 70s. They've done a good job in my estimation, and they're local. They reinvest, I mean, they pay taxes here. What we pay them, they reinvest in the city of Fargo. A national firm, it's just bye-bye. The money's out the door and never comes back. So that would, but I'd be willing to listen to an RFP.
Well, we discussed at the last meeting how we'd like to have the emergency plan laid out of what exactly would happen. And I think Mr. Strand indicated.
No, it's on my calendar,
Sorry, I got their,
yesterday.
phones
I was on a
muted.
conference call right now, but I don't need to be.
Somebody mute.
That's right, it's call.
Please
Yeah,
mute
I
your
need
phone.
to get something on books.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of a nice conversation.
Mr. Strand indicated how the city's communication department with, 12 employees had been working about 24/7 and on the emergency crisis and then the messaging and so we had talked about having a presentation by the city on what their, and by Flint on what our plan would be. And just to sit in a meeting and say, oh, they've done it, they're fine, we're good. I think we need to dig a little more deeper into that and make sure that we have a really effective crisis plan in place.
My discussion of an RFP was just brought on by the listening session with Flint. Seemed like something that if we went out RFPs, we'd be doing those, that type of data gathering or information gathering, put out into an RFP, and then have those agencies, not just Flint, but other agencies come in and present, and then make a decision based on that information.
So let me just say one thing though, I hear what you're saying, I don't disagree. One of the things you shouldn't expect from a prospective vendor is to come back to you based on the information, for example, you're just saying, and give you the campaign idea. That's what they get paid for, ladies and gentlemen. Agencies don't do that. They will come back to you and say, okay, this is how we do business. It's, let's face it, it's a factual, it's a factual, how do you like us session.
Sure.
Nothing, there is no free idea out there.
Norm, I've had those presentations, so,
Sure.
and they'll give you, here's kind of a concept, here's another concept, here's how we develop them. Certainly, yeah, they can give you your fully developed by far or whatever campaign that we run with Flint. I was just, what you were describing to me seemed a lot like what we would do if we went out in an RFP and say, here's kind of what we're looking at, here's our advertising budget, what do you know, what can you provide, why should we pick you to help us expand? And I'm always return on investment guy.
Yep.
And so here it is, we're setting this budget up. What are your ideas and suggestions? Sells. And Flint may be the one, and you would think with the wealth of experience Flint had in the market, they're probably gonna be able to come in and say, here's exactly what we want to do, here's how it's better. And other agencies have, may not have that depth of experience. It would just be, and Jim, I think your point, they've been here since the 70s, there hasn't been an RFP.
No, they've been here since '98. Flint's probably been around since the '70s, I don't know when they started.
Well, I think we used them when I was here and Joe.
I don't know prior to.
Well, it's been a long time, and the contract is.
There's no contract.
There is no contract, it's
Annually
yearly
here.
approved annually. So if this group wants to at this point, whether it's 70s or 98, it's been a long time since. I would imagine since that time, in the mid-90s to today, there's been a whole turnover in agencies, people, and would it be a time we want to go out and take a look, see what the market has to offer? It doesn't preclude Flint, it says, what else is
Absolutely. I don't think we would go and get our parking lot striped or resurfaced without getting multiple bids. It's shocking to me that we haven't had a competing marketing bid for 30 years
And
or 25 years.
I hear what you're saying, and I think it's a very good idea. I think it's something you should consider. But I caution you that after these presentations, you may not get all that you were hoping to get from the presentations. They will come in and tell you, this is how we do it, we'd really like to do it, this is why you should pick us. And you'll say, but, and you won't say it in the presentation out of respect for them, say, well, they didn't give us very much meat. Again, that's what they get paid for. You're gonna have to roll the dice with someone, you're gonna have to roll the dice with Flint. Will they do if you feel they're not doing the job, are they going to do a better job? I don't know that. put that
Yeah.
crystal ball in.
Yeah, let's, maybe at this point, Norm, thank you for the information. And we should, as a board decision, decide if an RFP is the direction we wanna go, or continuing with Flint. Then-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
what is, and again, I apologize for not being there in person. It's kind of a little bit difficult being online, but it seems to me like we really don't have a good solution at this point. I think when, and that's probably, we need to figure out what's the best case scenario. I think, as we've talked, the strength of local is the crisis management and all the things that are really important to the airport. The strength of the national is the data, not guessing and putting strategic plans together. So it seems like what we're looking for is how do we merge some of that together. And I think the suggestion, if we went with a national firm, that we have to hire a staff person local, I don't think that's the direction we want to go. And so maybe the question that I have is there another alternative out there, or is it something that we could, have Flint propose to us? But it seems like there's some real strength in the national firm that if they were incorporated and we weren't guessing, but we had strong data and making strategic decisions, that would be helpful. Well, I don't know, Norm, if you'd like to just comment on that.
I agree with that, absolutely. I'm thinking off the top of my head, but certainly the data that the national firms probably isn't proprietary information that only they own. Maybe Flint can go access that. Yeah, well, like there, and again, you gentlemen don't have this report, but there's a page in there that shows some tracking data, and some of that information is available in our process here. We found that out. So I would suggest that the conversation with Flint be, look, you need to find some of this data, get out there. If it costs money, what does that take?
So a few months ago, Flint and ourselves, along with our Air Service Development Consultant, had a presentation by Placer. What they do is they capture real life cell phone data, so they know exactly who's been in your terminal for more than 7 minutes. They can tell who shows up in Minneapolis, who shows up in Orange County. $15,000 to $20,000 a year.
Yeah, about that.
And you get so much data that it's like, okay, who's going to crunch all that data and figure out what to do with it? It's something that Flint probably could use for multiple clients that they have, but is it real accurate? I don't know. Just an example of data.
Interesting time here, thanks Norm. What I would suggest is just a motion to receive and file report, and then consider a motion to add to the next agenda the discussion of an RFP, or how we would like to move forward with the process. Unless there's something different.
What you said. I think there's a whole, the marketing climate is changing literally every 3 months. There's a lot of different opportunities. Would it hurt us to have a national firm come in and say, this is how we handle the local thing? Would it hurt us to have the city come in and say, this is how we handle emergency crisis management? I mean, the more information we have, the better. I'm not saying we have to I think lack of competition also breeds complacency. So I think a RFP would be a fantastic idea so that we can look at the many, many options that exist within the marketing environment. And I think because we are literally doubling the size of our airport, now is the perfect time to do it.
So I'd solicit a motion to receive and file the report from Norm.
I make that motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
By motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, unanimous. Now, we can either just informally put a discussion on an RFP for marketing services on the next agenda, or if we want specifically to call it out through a formal motion, happy to entertain that.
I'll make a formal motion.
Okay, so the motion would be to include discussion about an RFP for marketing services. And
Mr. Chairman?
yes,
I think if, you know, this is great information for us to have, I think rather than just, starting to request an RFP, I'd appreciate it if we could kind of hold on this for a couple weeks just to digest what's been presented and, you know, think about what end result we ultimately want. So
right.
my preference would be for us to think about this for a couple weeks.
I think what we're talking about here is that discussion of an RFP, and it's kind of just timing here. If you know, you want to wait 2 meetings, that'd be fine, or
I think in the interim, how about if we were able to get the city communications to come and give a presentation on emergency crisis management?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
all right. So
Mr. Chair,
yes,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I guess I have not a comment, not a question, but is there some concern that something is broken in the marketing program or the crisis management at the airport currently?
What do you mean by broken?
Well, we're proposing making changes, and it's good to have input. It's good to talk about RFPs. My concern is the staff is doing operations of the facility, and are we going to be spending their resource and time working on spinning up RFPs? And I'm happy to hear other opinions, but if it's not broken, I'm concerned we're trying to fix something that's not broken.
So your suggestion is we don't discuss an RFP at this point?
I wouldn't be in favor of an RFP, no, I would not.
I'm simply suggesting that we be open-minded in the opportunities and options that we have in the marketing environment. I am not a marketing professional. I have seen other airports' websites and social media marketing, and I think that we could certainly be doing better, particularly with community engagement. And I think that because our airport is doubling in size and it is so important as a regional airport service, that we really get out and communicate with our potential customers. We want to continue to grow. Maybe it's a good time to just reevaluate.
John,
Mr. Chair?
one moment, please. We do have a motion and a second.
I didn't hear a second.
Okay. Did anybody second the motion? I thought Jim, you did.
What was the motion?
The first one to receive and file, but not
Right.
to add it to the,
Okay, all right,
I
so,
didn't hear a second on that.
and we've received and filed, that motion's been approved, so now what we're entertaining is the second motion, which would be to have the discussion about an RFP. And with that, I think first have the discussion with the city at the next meeting, and then a discussion about RFP following the second meeting from today. Is there a second to that motion?
Well, I would second that. Seems like we have a lot of motions here, though.
No, this is one motion.
All right.
Joan, do you have that now?
Well, you added to her motion, it sounds like, but hers was just to include discussion about an RFP for marketing service at the next meeting.
Right,
Agenda.
Mr. Berg suggested,
And then I said, let's do what Mr. Berg suggested and hold off for a week or two so that we can get some information from the city on how we could potentially partner with their emergency crisis management, and perhaps that would be a good time for Flint to come in and explain what their crisis management, because a part of the marketing strategy or a part of a part of Flint's selling point is the crisis management, communication, press releases, et cetera. And after the city just went through a very big crisis, like what they learned and maybe how they could have our backs if something were to happen, what is the plan in place? More specifically than, it's fine, Flint can do it. I just would like to have a little bit more information.
Looking at the chief here, I mean, we talked about this at the last meeting, the city already has our back.
Okay?
So we just reviewed that.
And they're required to have it by
We're getting
FAA.
a little far afield
Well,
of the,
but- So,
excuse me, Sean, let the board make this decision. So we have a motion,
Is it in need of a motion?
well,
They're suggesting that we get together with the city. I don't think that's in need of a motion.
just in the timing of it.
Yeah. And maybe, Mr. Chairman, agreeing with Mr. Captain, maybe we just add these to the agenda.
They can
Simple
simply
as
be
that.
informally added at this point,
Yeah.
or we could do it with a motion.
Let's just add it to the agenda. And if that's okay with the person that made the motion, I withdraw my second.
You okay with that?
Okay, yeah,
All
so
right.
back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board, but there's a two-step, the
We would let-
understanding here is we're gonna have a two-step process. Correct.
No, do we wanna hear from Flint what their crisis management plan is? I mean, Mr. Strand said at the last meeting that he saw the city communication department work 24/7 for more than a week. Are those type of, are those types of resources, is that in place for the city as well? I didn't realize that the airport was currently working with the city's communications department.
This is a really good discussion to have. So we're not assuming things
Mm-hmm,
and or acting in a vacuum. You know, this experience is fresh in Fargo now, and what their knowledge base to share going forward, I think would be really valuable for all city departments and quasi-government agencies. I just really think I would learn a lot listening to them too, watching what they're going through, and it's still a full-time job coordinating these communications and the crisis management, and it's just way more than I ever imagined. But my sense is, let's just really know what would it look like? What are our terms? What's a mutual aid agreement mean if a crisis happens? Who kicks in? What's their role? How far does it go? I just, to say we have a mutual aid agreement is one thing, but what would it look like? Is like if something happens, that's what I'm curious to learn more about.
It might be just an informative section also, for all of us. And so, Joan, I guess just would add that to the
because
next
I'm pleased to hear that we have a mutual aid agreement, but in the past, what has been presented is that Flint is crucial to the airport because they are our crisis management. And so that we have a partnership gives me comfort and more confidence, but it would be nice to see how that is, what the plan actually is. Yeah.
All right. Away we go.
So we have a presentation on crisis management.
Let's confirm with our comms department the
Yes.
schedule works, that they can plan it and anticipate it, but I would say yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that discussion. I'm wondering if 8 and 9 we may roll together here. We've got the medical plan
Mr. Chair?
renewal. Yes.
So you put me on hold while the conversation was going on, but I did have a comment regarding the last topic.
We put you what?
May I speak?
Sure, you were on. Okay.
You asked me to hold.
Okay.
You asked me to hold. So I understand marketing, and per Paul, the marketing is dynamic and ever moving. And we're about 2 years out for a terminal. And so our conversations today, unfortunately, I'm worried, anything we talk about in the next 2-3 months will be stale 6 months ago, and then obviously stale again a year from now. And so I think as this gets closer to terminal completion, it is really important, 3 to 6 months out, it is really, really important. And we may be a little ahead of it, and that's okay. I just think, it is a very dynamic, moving technology and environment, and so I'd just like us to keep that in mind.
Thank you. All right, Pro Resources is with us here today, I believe. And have you had a chance to look at our medical plan renewal? Or is that, were you given that information?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you come up and let's, bring these together here.
Randy Johnson from Brown & Brown was supposed to join. I don't know if Randy's on there or who's representing Randy. There he is. Randy's on there. So he's with Brown & Brown, represents North Dakota Fit. And then Stacy's our benefits pro at Pro Resources.
Okay, so in 8 and 9 together here, let's jump in. And one of the reasons we were hoping you could be here is also in this process right now of ever-changing wages and benefit packages, employee shortages. We really want to make sure that we know what the market looks like, how we stay competitive in that market, and what you see from what we're offering. And so maybe we could start and congratulate yourself, kick around what the renewal option is. I know this is difficult for us, but to not renew, we would have had to give notice a couple months ago, I believe. So it's kind of an awkward situation that we have to give, I believe, 1 year notice of non-renewal. So that's something going forward. If we're seeing our current benefit provider not working, we really need to be on a front end loaded situation. But let's see how it plays out right now. Thank you.
Randy, did you want to talk on the renewal itself first, or do you want me to jump in here?
Randy, you may be on.
I know you. I'm not mute. I think I heard the question is, you just want me to give an overview of where you're at and then your options, or do you want to maybe give some background to the most recent renewal that we did with the Board of Trustees of the ND Fit program? So I just want to be clear in what direction you would like me to address.
Well, I think overall from the authorities' position, we're from a budget standpoint, we're looking at about a 7% or 5% increase, and then not directly related to you, but related to Pro Resources, is the employee participation in that and the benefits package that the employees receive. So kind of a two-part here.
Yeah, I think I can just address your renewal this year is actually in the lowest tier bracket, which is 4.77. So this happens in a cyclical basis, just based on every group that's in the trust. So they're in the January pool. Currently, there are 45 municipalities, and there's a couple of school districts, but predominance is municipalities throughout the state. Total now in NDFIT, there are 120 employers throughout the state, and we're adding probably another up to 19 more in January, and we have 8 school districts joining in October. So that's as the pool becomes larger, the predictability of the risk profile becomes better, and then Also, we do offer flexibility with different types of programs in terms of options for whatever the customization or need is of the particular employer relative to plan design. And so those options are always available and can be revisited on an annual basis. I can tell you also, just for some context, the overall pool, driven predominantly by a significant increase in specialty drugs and GLP-1 drugs, more specific. This last year, we had almost a $1 million increase at the pool level just of GLP-1s. Those are drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and those type of drugs. So overall, the pool actually had about a little over a 9% increase. So on a weighted basis, because of your experience, you actually you were in the lowest tier of that. And you know, again, what's driving it is the continual basis of just inflationary components that will always be present as it relates to medical, and particularly, and most particularly with pharmacy, that's driving. Because pharmacy makes up about 25% of your spend, but it has the highest inflation of on average of 13 to 15%. So just a little bit of, I mean, I don't want to go into all the necessarily details for the purpose of this meeting to everything that occurred in the overall trust experience, because that actually information is available online in a recorded version if anybody wants to go and review that presentation that we did just last week with the group renewal on an individual, on a group basis. But as it relates to what you may want to consider, again, it's always the flexibility. I will tell you also that there's some advocacy, if you would, by the industry sometimes about going to the option of HSA high deductible health plans, although we do have some of those in the group, because you're trying to appeal to recruitment, retention of some of the employees, so offering dual option plans is often considered by some employers. We just advise our clients to remember that there's generally adverse selection that takes place when you do that, because your highest cost that's driving your premium increases your high cost claimants. It's not the individuals who have claims below, let's say, 5,000. And sometimes there's the belief that you change behavior by putting a high deductible out there, but that's not where your cost comes from. And that's important actuarially to understand. So if you do go with the idea that maybe you'll do a dual option plan, we would provide that as a quoting option for you to consider. But just keep in mind that it would probably be adjusted slightly to take into consideration the potential adverse selection that would take place. But in terms of customization of a program or products that you would like to see, we can certainly do that and make that available to you for your consideration. So I don't know if that's what you want me to address specifically, but that's kind of where the background is and what options that you may that you have available to you.
That helps, and I guess we would
Jump
over and kind of say, okay, we're seeing the proposed increase of coverage. How are we fitting in the market? How do we look? And again, keeping in mind both county and the city, we have to see what they're doing in the same arena at the same time.
Absolutely, and that's what we did. We ran some projections and benchmarking in general demographics of the Midwest transportation professional services, just to see where the airport was ultimately falling into line with. Taking into mind that the plan you offer today is very rich. It's very rich. It's a platinum plan. It's ultimately what employees are seeking for these days. So to steer away from that would be what I would consider a decrease in the benefits package. But for sake of benefits benchmarking, to see where you line, ran different projections of, okay, so the top grid here is showing you airport, Midwest professional transportation, who's offering a PPO co-pay plan.
What's that? Can we get this up on the screen? I don't have it. Okay.
I think Joe, you have it right.
It was emailed to both Rick Berg and Rick Engen, so it should be in their email box.
So projecting out of what percentage of employers are offering PPO copay plans, which is what you have today, you have a $500 deductible with the copays built in, versus HSA plans, which you're not offering today. Now, have the conversation with NDFIT Ron Brown of if you were to add in an HSA. One thing that I saw that was potentially a lag in benefits per se is that you only offer one plan, where a lot of businesses are migrating to multiple plans for freedom of choice to the employee. Going back to that adverse selection, which can occur, but in talking with NDFIT, if that's something that you did want to do on your plan, you would be looking at an additional 2% increase on your renewal. So I keep mention that's something. Adding in a secondary plan for freedom of choice for few employees that may want to migrate towards it, but affecting the entire population with an additional 2%, that's something that you would ultimately have to weigh out. But that is something that they would add into the renewal if you chose to go that route. The secondary bracket there, I just wanted to the core aspects of your plan today, again, aligning out to the benchmarking of how they're aligning with other. Your plan is far richer than the majority of businesses out there. You have a $500 single deductible with a $2,700 out-of-pocket max. $500 is hard to come across these days. On average, we're seeing a 2 to 3% or $2,000 to $3,000 deductible. So that's pretty standard, but in the Midwest professional transportation, trying to map out where they're generally at compared to your industry, they're a lot higher than where you're at today. So as far as benefits, you're ahead of the curve. And then down on the bottom, I wanted to see where you fell into the employer contribution. So what you're contributing to the plan versus the employee's responsibility. Again, very ahead of the curve. The average for individual contribution is $500. I think you're just shy of $600. And then the family contribution was about $1,000, and you're well above that. So what's that saying is you're offering better benefits than what we generally see. The airport is offering more of a contribution than what you're seeing. So you've got a very rich benefits package with a low dollar premium for the employees to opt into the coverage. And it does show that the participation in your plan is, I think it was at 85 to 90%. So the employees are liking it, they're enrolling in it. And we don't seem to be having issues.
Having the rich benefit plan and then the lower employee cost, is that offset not offering an HSA?
I would say yes, absolutely. Because you're not getting the feedback that the employees don't want it or it's not too expensive for them. That's where we generally see HSA plans coming into play, where if the premium is too expensive for the employee to sustain the coverage and sustain family coverage, then they like to migrate towards those higher deductible, lower premium plans to offset some of that. And we can get, the nice thing with the HSA plans is we can get creative with it, where you can build in, HSA plans, the employees have to pay everything out of pocket until they hit the deductible. So it can be scary for them to make that transition, but you can get creative on the company side as build in company contributions towards the HSA to offset that deductible. But again, it's that lower price tag with the coverage itself. So it can be a nice aspect when you're talking about building benefits into a strict budget. We can pull in those HSA plans to help the company. But if the budget is not too much of a concern on the coverage itself today, you offer fantastic benefits.
I know you get Midwest professional transportation. Were you able to take specifically a look at the city and the county?
The city, I did not have, I think you had some stats on what they were looking at as far as contributions, but I didn't have percentages to build in. It was a little bit more harder to.
The county is working on that portion right now between our finance director and HR.
Questions?
Stacy, can you talk about, so the 5.77%, Randy mentioned 4.77, we have a 1% increase because we have our own wellness program through Pro Resources, we haven't adopted the NDFIT wellness program. So that costs us 1%, but you were gonna have a conversation with John Heath at Brown & Brown about we can still be eligible for the 1% discount, or how does that work?
You can be eligible, there's certain things you have to opt into, so there is a contract associated with it that you would have to allow. I believe it was an on-site presence for them to do biometric screenings on the employees, and then you have to open up, I believe the reasoning behind it was the voluntary coverages through EndyFit. So the dental, vision, accident, life, critical, all of those products today you're offering through Pro. I did check the premium that John shared with me, ours are pretty significantly lower than what theirs are today, but there are no requirements for the employees to enroll in it. My understanding was you strictly just have to make at least 2 products available, and then you have to sign the contract associated with the EndyFit Wellness Program, with the biometric screenings, marketing it and relaying information on from them, and then you would qualify for that 1%.
Mr. Chair?
Down 4.7.
Yes.
Is with respect to that 1%, in fact, the fact that we are using Pro Research, is there any discrimination issues in the plan with the fact that we do have it and are not able to take that discount?
Not that I'm aware, my understanding, it's strictly just voluntary where you get your renewal and if you opt into the wellness, then you qualify for the additional 1% decrease. They don't consider it an increase. I tried arguing the fact of, well, you do participate in our wellness, what can we provide for reporting or information back to them, but it is exclusive to their wellness program.
Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, I guess I go back to the question of if the discount is given, if that is intact, it seems a bit discriminatory if we already have it and it meets the same criteria or thresholds as what they offer, why we wouldn't get the same discount.
Maybe Randy can answer that, I don't know.
It doesn't meet all of the requirements that they do because they want the on-site biometric screening was one thing that as of today we don't offer. We don't do it currently with the program.
So it's not a mere benefit. Any other discussion or comments as we got a lot more we need to get through. We've got about 15 minutes, but
Well, I'm glad to see that we're offering our employees, in your words, a rich package because we want to treat them right and we want to retain them. And I think having a good benefit program is a big part of that. So thanks for coming and giving the presentation.
oh, we've still got more to go. So
Okay.
let's back up
Okay.
to number 8 then is that we need a motion to receive and file the medical plan review information.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Do we need to formally adopt the increase at this point, or is it done with that?
No.
Okay.
It's there, it's gonna happen whether we want to or not, I guess.
All right, well, we haven't opted out of it, which is kind of a weird thing, because we have to give a 1-year notice of opting out.
I don't know, maybe Stacy can talk about that. I mean, opting out, the other health plan options that we have as compared to the cost with EndyFit, there's anything that compares.
No, there wasn't.
We
A
paid twice.
5.7% increase is almost unheard of.
No, I'm just making the comment that if we ever do decide we want to make a move away from EndyFit, it's a 1-year notice, so we're gonna have to anticipate a year out to say,
That's hard because a lot can happen in a year with claims.
it's really difficult, so.
20 will be year 3, and we made a 3-year commitment to EndyFit when we joined it, so. But like I say, the options that are out there are age-based plans, which are probably twice the cost of what we're getting through EndyFit.
No, it's just the process that concerns me. I've always, when I see contracts like that, say, well, let's opt out each year and see if they'll let us back in. So, but nothing we can do about that right now. So the next item here is I've combined 8 and 9 is review of the employee handbook. Wonderful reading. I know all our employers love this.
This is our HR director, Megan.
Yes,
So-
I'm Megan Johnson from Crow, so nice to meet you guys.
If you could just walk us through what you see in our plan, if there's suggestions, improvements, I'd
Yeah,
love to see it.
overall, I would say your guys' handbook is very thorough. I know,
Did you get one?
there you go. We look at it on a very regular basis to make sure it's up to date and up to date with legal compliance. Jordan and I actually just did an update last month, I believe, because you guys did increase your military benefit. So our employees have recently signed off on it as well. And we also do have legal counsel reviewing it and any updates for 2024, we will pass on to you guys as recommendations and update it again at that time.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
The one that there are some situations, and I don't know if it would be in the handbook or if it's elsewhere, for reporting. That as an employee, at different levels, it's report to a supervisor, report to.
Oh, it's like an org chart.
Right, and I noticed there's just a few places that it's report to the board. I didn't see any contact information from an employee in the handbook as to how they would do that.
Okay.
And, my question is, if it's something that would rise to the level of reporting to the board, you'd hate to go to your supervisor and say, oh, by the way, how do I report to the board of directors, or the airport authorities? Wondering if we shouldn't have that information laid out for the employees, that's readily understandable.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And the other one, in, so often there may be immediate supervisors, and the employees are in a very difficult situation. If the concern is with an immediate supervisor, where do they, when do they jump to the next level, or where do they go? So, is there any safe harbor for an employee that doesn't have to, within the supervisor's immediate day-to-day operations, have to make reports that they just aren't sure? I mean, who should be included? And I worry that without that information, it's kind of just this, well, maybe I should talk about it, and maybe it's just a safe harbor to ask the questions. This is what's been happening to me, this is what I'm feeling, what is this? Because it seems like it's almost right to the nuclear option.
And that's what some people prefer to do, which is okay. Obviously, following the chain of command is recommended, so the supervisor is aware if there are issues, they can hopefully solve the problem. If they're not able to solve it, then go to Sean, and employees are always welcome to reach out to directly at Seth Pro, which is anything that can happen as well. If they feel it just needs to be escalated immediately, which then then I can reach out to Sean, and we can come up with a solution.
Yeah, I just didn't see kind of a real clear direction.
Okay.
Kind of sitting there, and especially if board members, it wasn't any way that would be, if they have to go to Sean and say, how do I get hold of any board member or?
Right, kind of breaks confidentiality.
Yeah.
Yep, agreed.
Okay.
That's a great recommendation.
The next item in there is, we talk about performance evaluations. Are we doing performance evaluations of the staff? Yeah.
Right. Not on a scheduled basis, but Sean and I have had some conversations on performance reviews. I do agree with him that they have constant communication with their employees and give daily feedback, which I think is important. That way, any issues are dealt with immediately, whether they're positive or negative. And then any disciplinary actions, safety issues, and all that are documented in the employees' files. So if you're looking for something more documented, there's definitely pros and cons to that. Could be like favoritism, if you do a rating scale, employees always want that 5, but how do they get to that 5? So definitely some
So we
pros and cons on both
don't do
sides.
annual reviews at all. We don't sit down with employees within our structure. Supervisor doesn't sit down with employees and say, here's kind of goals, everything for the year, here's the things that we want to accomplish, and then at year end, sit down with them and say, here's how we see what you're able to do, here are the steps. Because all that then ties back into the step system moving up in the salaries. It's automatic in time, but there should be a performance aspect to it, not just
A review system in place.
Right.
An annual or biannual or.
Right, no, they currently do not have anything.
Is that something you could assist with?
Yeah, absolutely, yep, we've shared some forms already and looked into some of that stuff. It's just determining if that's the way that it is more documented and formal sit down, or if we continue with the day-to-day feedback.
But there's.
And that's for all the employees, there's no review system at all?
There hasn't been for decades.
Okay.
It's a daily feedback system, weekly monitoring.
But there's no, is there any reports to the employees file if they wanted to say, how have I been doing? There's no verbal, what is it?
I would say the positive ones are probably all verbal, any disciplinary action or safety concerns are documented.
So if somebody, for instance, had too many sick calls, and then that's in their file and the employee has been discussed, or is there like a level of, like you're on probation or
Correct.
that's all there, okay.
But everything's verbal as far as.
The employees, the chief can attest, they appreciate the daily. If something's there, you're observing what they're doing, they want the immediate feedback, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever that is. Those things are addressed, and they seem to appreciate that more versus, oh gosh, my annual reviews on September 1st. It's basically meaningless.
Okay.
The daily constant feedback.
One doesn't replace the other.
I just know, like, if we would ever have to, for instance, fire somebody for not showing up at work, like we're covered legally.
Yeah, right to work status.
Yep.
Okay.
And they would have documentation if there's any performance issues or attendance issues or tardiness.
What's your recommendation on, formal yearly?
I think, again, I think there's pros and cons to both. A lot of employers do have a formal process, but I also see a lot of employers that are moving away from that just to have that daily feedback. Because there can be viewed as a lot of favoritism for performance changes. If you know your performances or your eval date is September 1st, so you have really good 2 months of making sure you're coming to work on time and exceeding expectations, but that might not be true for the prior 10 months, right? Because you got your raise, you got your feedback. So I see it both ways.
What's the county do,
I'd have to check with Stacy if they have monthly feedbacks on every employee, but I think each department does their own and then reports to our HR person. So highway department, Jason takes care of that part of it and then gives the results to human resources and gets filed there.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that this board would do that.
Yeah.
I think,
And it's the same thing with the sheriff's department. I know we've had some.
And management level, sort of top management team, Sean, who we got with Sean?
The board does.
And we, as long as I've been here, we've never done anything.
One or two in 32 years. It's constant feedback.
Is that something you could make recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, if that's something you guys want.
Well, we can remedy that. We'll just go out and have a beer and talk about it.
That's where you get in trouble.
I will say too, from the employee aspect, on any exit interview that I have completed for them while we have partnered, we do ask questions based on the day-to-day feedback from your supervisor relationship with your supervisors, and there has been no negative feedback on not having a formal performance review process.
It's kind of one of those, if it's not there, you don't notice.
Sure.
And I agree, I don't think any employee, boy, I wish there were more formal performance evaluations.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, but at the same time, you can look at it in the negative aspect, that it's everything you've done wrong, but it's also, I believe, a growth tool.
Yep.
That said, And at the beginning of the year, these are the goals, these are the things that we're gonna try to accomplish over this 12-month period. Here's how we're looking at how you did. And if you disagree, that's a great time to say, well, wait a second, I don't think you're looking at this in the same manner, or I'm misunderstanding what it is you want.
It also gives the employee a safe space to, you know, instead of during the workday, to actually sit down and say, this is what I aspire to, or I'd like to have more training, or this is, you know, something that I could add to the conversation or to the efficiency, or, I mean, it just gives you an opportunity to just sit down and, you know, make your job better
Agreed.
on
That-
both sides.
Those are definitely two pros, is you get that uninterrupted time with your supervisor to talk about goals, whether those are professional or personal. And sometimes it is interesting to hear an employee's personal goals that might be professionally related, to see how they want to grow in their careers, which ultimately help the employer.
And personality wise, not everybody, I mean, it gives the employee an opportunity.
Mhm.
I think not everybody's got the, you know, maybe the personality or the confidence to say, I wanna sit down and have a one-to-one on with my employer or my boss or my supervisor, and maybe we would be facilitating an opportunity for those employees to.
So I think that it's also the opportunity, like you said, to say, I'm in this position, I'm doing these things, what skill sets do I need to develop to qualify to be at the next level? And I just think we need to create this atmosphere. Here's a path forward within the organization, because the path forward right now may be to take the experience here, step out, step up, step out, step up. And we wanna figure that out and make this more of a, here's how you advance within the organization. And here's how you grow, and here's the benefit of staying beyond everything else. Have that clear path in those discussions. 'Cause I think from the board level on down, to keep employees, the supervisors, the value of the employee has to be throughout the organization and step by step. So more and more I see organizations saying, how do we hire, develop, grow,
And retain, right?
and
Retain is the big thing, and just facilitating communication.
the easiest way I see it is, we need more retirement luncheons than going away luncheons. And the only way to do that is to have this organization embraces that process. I would ask you to just give us what it would look like to put a performance review system in place. Kind of stake out what that would be, and so I'm sure there's some additional costs to it. What that would take and get back to something. Okay. Other items I noticed in the employee handbook, this one I thought was funny, is when we talk about social media, top social media sites with MySpace. I don't think that's one of the top social media sites anymore.
Probably not, right?
Maybe it is, I'm not sure. And our conflict of interest policy, I think just so we know that applies to the board as well as the employees, that is the same policy, and it's, you know, anything in excess of $20 or food and beverage and has been consumed on site, not carried out. So, the other thing, we've got longevity pay and also step increases within our payroll system. It's just a little confused. The longevity pay is in addition to the step increases that we see in our pay scales.
Correct.
And on the same time, it doesn't mean longevity pay kicks in after you reach the top step, and we'll only be getting cost of living increases, or if it goes along with it?
I believe it goes along with it.
There's the city.
Yeah, I just, I wondered if that shouldn't be considered along with the step increases, instead of just another, or, complicated factors, the step increase. Shouldn't, I know it doesn't call it out, but specifically we have to start thinking about the step increases as part of that process of keeping the employees engaged and growing. Just like your opinion on why that's a separate item.
That is what they were doing prior to our relationship, so we just kept everything consistent, so there wasn't any changes to employees' compensation or benefit.
It just means it's kind of the same concept, the same theory, but we have two separate things that just didn't understand.
What are the steps? Just
Mr.
10
Chair?
step,
Yes.
11 steps?
Yep.
County.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Go ahead,
Yes.
I have to step off and catch an Uber.
Okay,
I apologize.
we still have a quorum.
See you back in Fargo.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the county, presently the county's at 21 steps, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
And we're trying to go down to 12, but
That's just something, as we look at this going forward, I know it will be perceived as kind of taking something away if we combine it, but at the same time, I think we need to be more specific and purposeful with our step increases, talking about here's your professional development, here's your path forward, here's what we would be doing. So, to me, it didn't make a lot of sense. Last item I had, well, the health insurance, we're doing 25/75, 25% for the employee, 75 for the employer. And I see other information. Are we in the market, are we well leading the market there, or is that a good place to be?
I would agree, so, Stacy, yeah.
Yeah, you're above the market.
Okay,
It's not quite 25/75, I'll have to get the numbers for you, right in front of me, but it's close to it. Like the 80/20 or.
And I do think that's something, and again, that's one of the things for annual performance reviews, is a review of benefits. And I'm not saying that the employees should forget about it, but just sort of in the day-to-day action, they need to be reminded too of the benefits that they're receiving. The airport as an employer, the value of their service. Those are all part of annual performance review too.
Total compensation.
Total count. Okay, the last one, in our budget discussion, we included, I think, a $200,000 item for a CFO position. Can you help us with that job description for CFO?
Yep.
All right. Any other items there? Any gross emissions from our handbook?
No?
All right.
Say, and then I know Sean had asked for some market rate information as well.
Yep.
Which I just handed out to you guys, so, pretty self-explanatory, the cost of living, for Social Security, City of Fargo, City of West Fargo, and Cass County are there, those are either recommendations or final agreements with the city and their employees. And then the next sheet with the positions and the wages listed next to it, I think these are the last two positions that we have worked together with on hiring for the airport. So kind of just look to see the Fargo, Grand Forks, North Dakota ranges, what the city of Fargo currently has, and then what the airport is currently at as well. You can see they are a bit above average, but I think that is necessary based on the skill set that they are looking for, specific to airport.
We can't find a mechanic, it's just impossible, so either the wage has to go up or we hire somebody in the top, step 11 that has, many years' experience. It's just, that's applied right now here, right? It's been on a DPAC. We have a combination position, a mechanic, equipment operator kind of combination, but we haven't anybody apply for that either.
I think so, that one, yeah.
So there's one there. We do have an employee coming back to us, he's going through the onboarding process now and reviews, but mechanics are just, I don't know what they're gonna do. Something's gotta change, otherwise we're not gonna have a mechanic going into this winter.
Are you recruiting from like science school, or is there an opportunity for us to potentially pay somebody's tuition to go to training and then they would be obligated to stay for a year or two?
There's an option. Some of the equipment that they're trained on will be some familiarity, but our Oshkosh stuff and the fire trucks are all specialty equipment, so they have to run another school. I'm not opposed to that, but there's an expense to doing so. You'd have to find the right kid that wants to come to work, male or female, and give you that 3 to 5 year commitment. Once you're hired, so it's possible, but it's been tough.
Do we have mechanics that we could send to the Oshkosh school or
We don't
to
have any mechanic
enhance?
right now, zero.
None.
We've got a couple of guys that are equipment operators that are mechanically inclined, so they've been helping us along. Otherwise, what we do is we farm it out to RDO or Butler or some other place to come in and fix things. Or TransSource and Queen, Minneapolis, which a lot of them come to work on the fire trucks anyway. There's some things that they're going to be doing here. But just to have the day-to-day mechanic is just not existing.
Wow.
Well, it's part of why, and so, I think county and city are both struggling with some situations. We do have a way to deal with it. You can look to higher steps in the pay scale, which starts to indicate to us that we probably need to take and reevaluate those positions. For having to hire people with little or no experience or 1 year experience, and step 12, which assumes 12 years on the job. Probably meeting.
And trying to recruit one individual that has a ton of experience, comes up here with a vendor to work on equipment, and probably would come in at step 9, 10, maybe 11, right at the top right from the start, just based on their experience and what it would take to get them to move here. So continue to try and recruit the person. We'll see.
Any other questions, discussions on the handbook and employee benefit package? Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is the purchase of a pickup truck from the state procurement contract. I just noticed somewhere in there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Lori Perlmutter from Pro Resources.
Yeah.
I think the safety element was left off on Pro. If I could have 2 minutes, I was just asked by Joan to give an update on the activities we did regarding safety.
Oh, certainly. Go ahead.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to let you know, just on a high level recap, we're doing monthly safety training with your team members. And when you were talking about retention, I think they have really appreciated the elevation on concern for their well-being and a good, safe, healthy workplace. We've been doing monthly safety committees. As a result of some of those things, we've done some additional fall protection training. People are more aware. They've sent me some photos of things that aren't quite up to snuff, if you will. I've been doing facility inspections quarterly. We got iRush stations added where they were needed. Post-accident investigations have been done with the root cause analysis. One of them led to adding stop signs out on your property to help minimize vehicle accidents. So, and then all of those things are compiled into documentation for the WSI with your workers' comp discount program to help save on your premiums. So I just kind of want to let you know that those things are happening behind the scenes, and I can take any questions if anybody wanted to know more.
Lori does a great job. She even does the forklift training.
Well,
All right.
She does well. We appreciate it.
Yeah, any questions? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lori.
All right, thank you.
Item number 10 is the procurement of the pickup truck. My one question is, at one point, it does not meet spec, and something seemed very critical on gear ratio, something.
We don't go with that truck, so it's not.
Okay, I just, when I saw it does not meet spec and then we're buying them, it always concerns me that anybody that bid it, something that did meet spec, do they have a potential protest?
Yeah, well, it's the state bid, so, I mean, they put it out there, nobody else bid it, and they got it, so. I mean, and if we total out with that truck, it makes a difference, but it doesn't, so.
Okay. I'm just more procedure than anything. All right. Motion to approve,
So moved.
second,
I second.
call roll.
Captain,
Aye.
Keckman,
Aye.
Bosworth.
All right, and of course our doors are wearing out before we model and repair.
Terry, sorry to keep you waiting for almost 2 hours, but Terry's been working with Jeff Van You at Fargo Glass and Paint and phase 1 process here to replace all 4 center doors. Right now, the outside entrance door is not going to be functional. They tried to find parts internal on an inside door, it just doesn't work, so. Here we
Yeah, they're old, they need replacing, they don't have any parts, can't get parts. It was actually going to be part of the terminal plan, and after talking to Fargo Glass, it just needs to be a repair item in a repair maintenance budget kind of thing, because we need to get it done before snow starts flying, and they're 12 weeks out and everything.
Their inability to get parts was shared with us 2 weeks ago.
They were trying to steal parts from others and they just couldn't make it work, so.
Is there, anything, the new terminal expansion, are these reusable in any manner?
Yeah, actually, so one of the things that they're exploring on the entry, that all depends on some things that could happen. So for instance, the Skyway could possibly add some columns and stuff. So one of the things they were talking about is bringing that entrance out a little ways and then enter from the sides instead of directly from the south. So we do get some south winds and stuff in the winter and things, but a couple things. One, if we do a ramp, that will pretty much eliminate that issue. Two,
If we do a what?
if we do a ramp, because that would block the wind.
Sure.
But I asked Jeff about the whole idea of can we move these to a different spot? And he said, absolutely.
Okay.
He said, can't move the other ones. And once we've taken them apart, they'll never go back together.
Are we gonna be expanding our entrance at all? Like if we bought some doors today, would we need similar doors?
No, we feel pretty confident that the sides of the doors are fine, so we'll just replacing what we have.
Oh, like we wouldn't need to have more to match them if we then run into trouble.
We'll have more, we'll have some other exits coming out of the new building, so.
Okay,
that will-
but we'll keep the existing size of our entry.
Correct.
Okay,
And the doors we would order now should be comparable with
Right, exactly.
with the design.
And they will be able to be, if we decide to do something with the entrance and maybe create a larger vestibule or whatever, they're easily taken apart and put back in place.
So the automatic doors Jeff is proposing are the same doors that they are proposing to McGough in the terminal expansion. It's already in process.
Right.
It's giving them a price for the doors.
Okay,
And in our discussions yesterday with the FAA, they confirmed that we can recover this in the TFC.
okay.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second.
The thing I'd ask is, would you wanna do the alternates at this time as well, or just do the center entrance and then do the east and west later?
Yes.
But, yeah, I'll include the alternate.
So do all of them.
Those entrances are gonna stay in place, they're
Yes.
not,
They're not changing.
okay?
Okay with the motion and the second?
I'm still thinking about like if we should replace them all at the same time, if there's a benefit to that, or if they're
The west-
functioning,
yeah,
why?
The west ones are a little newer, we still have some issues with ghosts that come in and out. The east ones are older, just like the center ones, and there's always issues with them, so.
I would suggest if we're confident, we can reuse them.
Yep. Yeah, Jeff was very confident in that. I guess he just said, yeah, you know, we wouldn't expect any changes in these doors from a manufacturer's perspective for the next 5-6 years, so.
So how are we picking that brand or that style, or, I mean, maybe we wanna have the first ones installed and just make sure we like them and that they're functioning the way we want them to, or
They're
before
a-
we.
There's a brand that we've been using for quite a while, and so in North Dakota, obviously, the issue, we have some real issues with the whole snow and all that kind of stuff, and they perform really well, so it's one of those that we know and rely on, and so we feel pretty confident that that's what we're doing.
Okay.
There was options.
Then I'm good.
Just so you know, there was options like the idea of, and if you've ever been in a really large facility that might have automatic circular doors that just kind of go around and around and around. You don't see that very often in an airport because
Luggage is
they
an issue.
they get so big.
Yeah.
Because you're dragging luggage and that kind of stuff, so you can get in a lot of trouble with those.
Okay.
You see those typically in
Hotels.
you know, places where and some place that you're probably not, you know. We're just not even wanting to go there from a snow thing and all that kind of stuff.
Or bifold.
Yeah. Okay, alright,
Company that does bifolds.
I'm fine with.
All right.
Your motion was to replace all of them?
Yep.
I'll second.
All right. We have motion and second, call roll please.
Habitat.
Aye.
Oops, aye.
It's okay. Airport construction security update, home stretch.
Alright, I'll make this quick here. Like I said earlier, we're still working on the long-term parking lot. The rain this weekend didn't help things. They were on course to pave towards the end of this week. I think it'll be next week now. They just have to get all the there's just dirt there, so they have to get it dried out and compacted before they can bring in the gravel and get it cut to grade so they can pave. So it'll be soon though. On the North GA project, I can't stand up here and they're working on dirt again. I can't stand up here and give a good description of what's all going on. So I guess I would encourage you guys to go out and take a tour of the field. If you want, I can bring you out there just to get a grasp of the scope of the project and exactly, see it with your own eyes to see what's going on. And then continue to work with border states on the punch list items for the east economy lots. Hope to get that done this month, but it's in their hands to get taken care of. And I think that's about it. Just trying to get through the whole stretch of this access control project too. So, any questions on that?
All right.
And then the North GA, we found out yesterday, and I engaged the Alicia contacts in DC yesterday, is the FA's done with all the approvals for our grant. They're waiting for the congressional announcement on our grant for the North GA. So once Armstrong announces it, then the FA will load it and they'll be able to draw down on that $9.1 grant.
Correct, yeah.
And so, any other items?
I just wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to tour the Minot Airport this week, or last week, and if anybody, have you been there?
Minot?
Yep, to the new terminal?
Not for a couple of years.
Okay, so like the new terminal that was opened in 2016?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just super impressed and took away some really great ideas, and I did add some pictures to my airport inspiration album, if anybody wanted to take a look at those. Some interesting ideas like with baggage claim and letting people know what flights and their luggage what carousel their luggage would be coming out on. There was smart carts. They have 10 smart carts available for passengers that need them. They had a dog relief area. Just lots of great ideas for that terminal.
So we do have signs on our baggage claims with the flight numbers.
Okay.
And our smart cards, I guess, when they went out of business, they gave them to us.
Yeah,
They're free.
yeah.
We've got 10 of them, so.
Do we?
They're available.
Where are those?
They're stored back by the game room, just inside the center staircase there, so the security guards, anybody, coming to get smart cards, have been free for.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't realize that we had those, so that's good news.
Benefits we don't know about.
I guess maybe I just don't see them with their current location. I know that they're not used a lot, but for the people that do need them, it's nice to know that we
I
have
know
them.
we had the discussion a year or so ago about heated and cooled jetways. You said their jetways are.
Minot has 4 heated and air-conditioned jetways. So I was kind of blown away by that.
Not a good path to go down. Yeah, but it's not a good path.
Well, I guess we should.
We discussed that when we ordered the bridge for Gate 4. That'll be here and installed by November, hopefully.
How are, I'm just curious how they're able to, from both Winnipeg, I know the last time we discussed it.
Yeah.
I did talk to Winnipeg. I thought it doesn't work. He admitted to me it doesn't work. There's so many things they have to do to keep the bridges like heated in the wintertime. It's a lot of work for them.
No, the same thing, I guess, Bucks Minot's experience.
Yeah, I'll talk to Minot and find out.
Okay.
What happens in our.
Minot has a lot of stuff that the engineers threw in way back when. I mean, their terminal's bigger than our terminal.
Yeah.
And they do 20% of the passengers we do.
I think, we'll build it and they will come. They're certainly poised for the future. They've got 1,400 parking lots or spots. They've got, I know their terminal is currently 125,000 square feet. We're at 117? Yeah. So, I mean, it is beautiful. I realize their passenger load is a lot less, but I think there's still points of inspiration that we could take from that.
Well, it's a new
that
building.
terminal.
It's a brand new building. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with a brand new building.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, and on the heating and cooling, at the extremes it may not work, but at the mean it may work.
And with a new terminal or our new expansion, I know they're setting the bridges up different. They're actually mounting onto a vestibule and that'll provide some.
Yeah, you can check and see what their experience is, certainly. All right, any other?
One of the things you see, TSA pre-check event this week, Monday through Friday, 9 to noon, 1 to 5. They processed 96 people yesterday, 48 had appointments, 48 were walk-ins. They are encouraging people to get registered online before they walk in. The August 15th meeting, so next Tuesday, we'll know by tomorrow how many have RSVP'd. So either we'll have it here in this room or at the Air Museum. We'll see. So the delegation, the governor, chamber, EDC board, Cass County, Clay County, Moorhead, West Fargo, and Fargo were all invited, and I don't know how many responses we had so far.
About 15 for in-person.
Yeah, and there's a ton of people that'll be online, the DC delegation and stuff. Armstrong, Kramer, and Hogan weren't available. They're traveling, but their DC and local staff will be. September meeting dates, I'll be traveling to the National Airports Conference, the second meeting in September, or first meeting in September. So we'll look at either meeting 2 weeks in a row or just having one meeting in September. I'll have to check with Mead and Hunt and others just to see if there's some things happening with the terminal project. So the 20th and the 27th, I forget what the dates are, Joe. The 13th I'm traveling.
So then it would have been 12 and 26, so.
Okay.
Next one is 19.
Possibly meet the 19th and the 26th. We'll see what we have for agenda items at that time. So, yeah, I don't have anything
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
So move, or second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.